G'day, mate. Welcome to Friday Facts 305, the big oil changes. I've got good old Mojo with me. Hey, mate.
Hello.
So, we've got a couple of things in this Friday Facts. The boring ones are first, I'll be honest.
Yeah. This is just filler for what we want to get to.
It is.
Everyone wants to get to.
It is. So, this is Lua Mod GUI editions. Mod GUIs have been an interesting part of Factorio modding since it started working at Woob. They allow scenarios of mods to add GUI that look and feel like the base game, which they really, really do.
Did a reasonably good job.
Yeah, this is the PvP configuration, which, is that not part of base game? In a scenario code?
It's a scenario code, but it's not technically part of base game.
Yeah. So this is that halfway spot between a mod and part of base game, because it's scenario, so it's like a built-in mod. Yeah. And it feels and looks like normal gameplay, you know, when you're going through the different interfaces. So, yeah, it's... I don't know. It's interesting that they don't let mods really touch the main game interface. We'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, when someone's new to Factorio modding and is introduced to how they function, they almost always have the same questions. Why is the mod GUI part of the game state? Why do mod GUIs need to be deterministic? And how can I edit the base game GUIs? And then comes the explanation. The actual widgets are not part of the game state and not deterministic. The part the mods have access to is however is in an environment where mods have to operate deterministically. The mod is allowed to read some data. That data must be deterministic. Simple bit of logic. If a mod can read a checked state of a checkbox, then that check state needs to be deterministic. If the mod didn't have access to the read state, it would need to store the last known state and update every single time it got the event changed, which basically means that the mod devs have to put in a lot of extra effort when writing the GUI for their mods, to make sure that everything happens the same time every single time you use the GUI. But it also means that because it's handled that way, hopefully there's less crashes, and we don't have to.
They also have to figure out on their own devices how they're going to store all the information that's prompted.
Yeah.
In a deterministic way.
Yeah. So, the other option is every single mod implementing their own system for remembering the last known state about the GUIs they were using. Instead of just leaving that entire mess to the mod developers, we decided long ago we would manage that last known state for them. So, basically, Woob said, hey, this is how it's got to be done, and you have to conform, or you can't write anything that touches the GUI, or has a GUI, which is
it's at least would save a lot of headaches in the long run.
Yeah, it's one of those early planning things that I guess Woob's done really, really well. They've like, no, this is going to be handled this way, and that's the only way it can be handled. Rather than I see a lot of other games, and I've just started playing Kerbal Space Program and going through the mods for that, and it's a little bit of a shit show, to be honest.
It generally is with mods, because it turns out that most modders can't actually code.
No, there's a reason why they're modders, because they don't code. You're at least not full time. They're not. I
say that, but there are exceptions. But the majority of mods are not written by the best top tier programmers, or it's not their area of expertise.
No, they're not written by professional programmers. They're written by somebody who wants to have fun and write up a mod, and that I understand. I've done Tigri myself. I would not call myself a programmer, far from it, but I can play with Lua a little bit. But then again, I have also broken things by just putting in the wrong comma, the wrong full stop, not putting a tab in at the right spot, all those sorts of things. So yeah, this comes out to the custom GUI. So at the moment, basically, mods are very, very limited in the way they can access the GUI. They're really limited to pretty much the left-hand side of the screen. They do have a couple of other options. And our setting is trying to figure out a semi-friendly way for mods to put things directly on the screen in a way the player can drag them around instead of being limited to some fixed area. So This is something I'm running on my rocket per minute base. I'm running the production stats, which takes up like the whole left-hand side of the screen. And then if I run max rate calculator, rather than it popping up at the top left, it pops up like underneath the production stats, and I've got to scroll a weird scrolly bar down.
Yeah, you can't. It's sort of locked there. You can't do anything with it.
Same with Train Supply Manager. If I open up its GUIs, everything goes a little bit pear-shaped.
Just shoves everything everywhere.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully our seating works out how he's going to do this. He does put an example if a mod wants to open a pane to left of the character GUI screen, character inventory screen. It's just not possible. But he's trying to work out how to get that to happen. And there are some critical parts to this new system. It needs to be easy to expand, either automatically works with all new base game GUIs, or works with minimal effort, not break with simple refactoring, not cause other programmers troubles by existing. I love that that's in there.
Yeah, I love that that's a thing.
And not prevent the base game GUIs from working how they need to. Sounds reasonable to me.
That's the most fundamental thing, is that it can't interfere with how the base game works.
Yeah, well, that one, and probably not causing other programmers trouble by existing. That would be the top two.
They're sort of interlinked.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping our setting gets some changes done here, because I'd really love to be able to drag the different GUIs around the screen and have them set up in a way that I can see them easily and they don't interfere with one another. And like having something to the left of the player inventory, I've used the RPG mod on many community maps, and the fact that it's its own like GUI that you got to bring up when you level up. You can add an extra point into, walking speed, mining speed, run speed, all this sort of stuff. If it was just part of the character inventory GUI, that would be so much more amazing. That it just sat to the left hand side when you open up your inventory. It would be one less thing on the screen to clutter it up. So yeah, I look forward to the change. We'll see when it happens, if it happens.
Yeah, it'll be good. See what comes of it.
It does make me think, as we've mentioned last week and the week before, that the fact that they're doing these minor little fixes means they really want this engine to be bulletproof to take it forward to whatever the next project is. That, and they're running out of bugs to fix. So
that too, yes.
Yeah. Feature creep rears its ugly head. Anyway, onto the oil changes. So
yeah, now we're talking.
Last week,
came here to be.
Oh yeah, last week they brought up how they're going to change oil, and everybody had a dummy spit. Pretty much sums it up. The forums.
Yeah, I only read a little bit of it. Probably for the best.
I think somebody mentioned in my Discord today that the forums were up to 36 pages, which I don't think's a record, but it's pretty damn good. Worth of.
It's not the most. I've what is it? There was something at like 15 or 16 that got up to. No, that's it. The
belts versus bots.
The belts versus bots. That's that went up. That's up there.
Yeah.
I can't remember the number, but it's at least 60. I'm pretty sure.
Insane numbers, yeah. But that one was more of a troll post than anything else. So oil changes. Basic oil changes. So a significant portion of you voiced concern about removing light oil and heavy oil from the outputs of basic oil processing. Even advanced players setting up oil processing consists of many steps, and for newer players, there are things to learn very quickly, which I agree with. For a new player especially, oil's not exactly simple.
No, it isn't. It's generally one of the most, over the years, it's been one of the most complained about things. I actually sent you the link before.
Yeah, we went on to the Steam stats, and we looked at, like, this is all the achievements that people have got, and technically only 57.6 of players have played a game of Factorio unmodded and made it to oil.
And unlocked oil.
And unlocked oil.
Yeah. It goes down to 39% as soon as they start producing, what is it?
1,000 red circuits.
1,000 red circuits an hour. Just not a lot of red circuit.
It's not a lot, but as I said, it's a lot of assemblers, so a lot of players don't get that far. But The other achievement that's right under oil processing is 20,000 iron plate per hour, which is really not hard.
It is not difficult to do. That one's mainly just time, more than anything else. I mean, you just got to play it. For most maps, you got to play it for an hour to get there.
Well, no, that's produce 20 plates per hour. So it's actually producing and using technically 20k iron plates, which is like a 3 or 4 lane bus. It is a significant amount of iron, being used and produced, and still it's not that hard. 10k electric circuits is a timed one, but even that's 51%. Like, oil is technically the most common achievement, but only 57% of players have actually
and even
done.
Then, it's 333 iron plate per minute. Iron thrown one.
Which is how many belts?
1 yellow belt, I think.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's one. It's actually, I think it's actually a half belt.
Damn. So it's really not a lot.
No, it isn't.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, particularly being on Twitch and such, over the years, it's people all the time. You see people say, they get to oil and then they're stuck, or they get to oil and it's like, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah,
I'm stuck. I want to just restart.
They hit that brick wall and they're like, no, I've learned enough. I want to restart. I want to do it again. I want to get through the early game again a lot more efficiently, waste less time, have more coal and other resources that they're starting to realize they're running out of. And they just get into a perpetual state where they just restart the early game over and over and over and never actually make it past oil because they've learnt enough that they want to go back and start again. But, like, they're a quarter of the way into the game, if that.
Yeah, not even now.
Yeah, so...
I was also thinking as well that, to me, fundamentally, this is addressing the core problem with basic oil, and that is that it's really just a brief stepping stone to advanced oil.
It is. We were discussing this beforehand, and we're both veteran players, so we put down a blueprint or a build that we've memorized that we can build automatically that is set up for advanced oil with cracking, with water intakes, all that sort of stuff. And then
you always build an oil processing for advanced oil. You never build it for basic.
Well, you literally set the recipes for the first 75 packs, which is potentially 75 solid fuel. Actually, no, we get 2 per pack. So maybe it's even less. Maybe it's only
less,
30, 35, 40 bits of solid fuel that you're going to shove into the blue packs, make the blue packs, get advanced oil unlocked, and then go through and change all the recipes.
And the red circuits.
Well...
Or if you want to go wind the clock back a little bit, the 75 batteries.
Batteries. Oh, yeah, because that was a previous recipe.
It used to be filter inserter, steel, and batteries, red circuits.
Yeah, it was back when it had 4 ingredients. Yep.
Well, back when it had 4. But even then, back then, you built it for advanced oil. Because basic, even worse, because basic didn't give you anything. It was, you had a limited amount of time before your storage tanks of light and heavy were filled up.
Yeah.
Or basic, because there was no function for it.
Yeah. Or you just added more tanks because there was nothing to do.
Yeah, which usually what I did.
Yeah, everybody just adds more tanks. And I've seen bases that people just go along and they just destroy the tanks, deleting all the heavy and the light, and then rebuild all the tanks. Or pick them back up, So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sort of highlighting this because I've seen a lot of people sort of complaining and not really getting the problem. That is the problem, is that basic oil it's not really a defined step.
Well, the other thing Wu mentions here is that you get that red-green, and whilst you're setting up blue, you just run through red-green research, and you'd literally unlock everything. You wouldn't have it automated, you just have it unlocked. And that was one of those things that if you stopped and you went, okay, I'm going to do, chemical science, because that's the next thing I want, and then just stop researching, you'd end up with a base that sits idle and everything backs up for like half an hour whilst you get the oil refinery set up, configured, and start actually making blue pots.
And if you actually think about it, the stuff that you need to set up chemical science is pretty much everything iconed there except for lubricant and rocket fuel.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we need and explosives. So you need plastic for the red
yeah,
circuits. You need batteries. You don't technically need batteries for the robots, but you're going to grab them anyway.
You want to prepare for. Oh, you have the acid there, so you're 4/5 of the way there.
Yeah,
You're so close.
So yeah, the plan is we're going to go away. We're going to go from standard oil processing, unlocking all these items, i.e. all the oil stuff, to changing it so basic oil is going to unlock oil, plus petroleum, plus acid, solid fuel, because as Mojo points out, solid fuel is sort of required for you start running low on coal. It also means that you're going to drain off a certain amount of your coal to make plastic. So you need possibly...
So you need to offset it somehow.
Some sort of offset, yep.
Admittedly, these days, I tend to switch over to solid fuel for power with oil these days. I finally converted it after all these years.
I swap it over. Actually, if I'm still on my starter coal patch and it's in the way, I'll burn through that. Otherwise, I swap it over and I'll run it into power. I'll run it into the furnaces. I'll just... Whatever line was feeding all the fuel will just end up getting flooded with solid fuel. Because it's easy, it's convenient, it's technically an unlimited item or an unlimited resource because oil is technically unlimited. So, yeah, and it means I don't have to worry about the next coal patch. So, yeah, plan is to swap it over. It also means...
to focus it down, really, and really make it its own step is really what it's coming down to. And that's how I see it, and I like that. Yeah,
and as we've said, we can look at the chemical science pack as proof that a player has managed to set up a functional refinery. Yeah, I've seen some horrible examples, but yeah, it's technically functional, so sure.
Functional with air quotes.
Yeah. So after proving that basic oil is working, a player then can proceed to the more advanced version with more outputs and more recipes. It's not nearly as confusing and daunting to unlock and orientate themselves with the advanced oil pressing, because they've already learnt a lot of stuff in the basic oil processing, yet it still has new concepts to grasp, multiple outputs, cracking, more recipes. So it means once you get oil processing, you can start your process, start getting things moved along, and then when you go to advanced, you're going to unlock lube, heavy oil, which basically only has a point of going to lube, light, which hopefully goes towards your solid fuel, and the different cracking processes. So... yeah, I think I like the change.
Yeah, I like how it's divided them out into much more discrete steps.
Yeah, but I also don't like the next part coming.
Yes, this is the real point of contention.
Well, yeah. So, the uses for light oil. Many of you pointed out, us two included, that light oil has few uses in the game, mainly for producing solid fuel efficiently, but it's possible to ignore light oil altogether and just produce solid fuel from petroleum gas, which is entirely true, and I see players do it all the time.
I've done it.
Oh,
just for simplicity. Okay. Who cares? Oil is free.
It is, but it's more trains, it's more throughput, it's possibly going to lead to more outposts later. Yeah, it's one of those things. I can't do it.
Productivity.
I can't do it.
But anyway, it's actually, on that point, light oil has very few uses. I would have thought there would be heavy oil. Heavy oil's kind of used.
Heavy oil, its only use is lubricant?
Yeah, lubricant and to turn it into light oil. Which light oil actually has end products.
And
I was actually telling you before that, to me, lubricant is just busy work.
Well, it does make the question of why does my chem plant output heavy oil, which then I need to turn to lubricant? Can't it just output heavy oil and I just use heavy oil
as lubricant?
As lubricant? Yeah.
Or can you do something even maybe a bit more wacky with lubricants? Because I've always considered lubricant to be a bit of an underwhelming recipe. It's just heavy oil in, lubricant out at a slightly lossy ratio. Couldn't it do something with like the coal liquefaction, which has a cyclic process to it?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's at what point do you start working away from it's just a game and have fun, and you start going towards, like, Angel's Petrochem?
Yeah. It's a fine balance there.
Complicated for the sake of being complicated. Look, I actually think lubricant is absolutely pointless. I really think I should be able to use heavy oil now we've actually brought it up, because You're literally just converting one liquid into another liquid. It's going from red to green. That's it.
It's just busy work.
It's absolutely pointless. So yeah. So one of the things they want to change is they want to put rocket fuel in the tech tree behind chemical science, and it requires light oil, which technically it already requires as far as I'm concerned. Maybe not as far as Mojo is concerned, but I think it requires light oil. They want to add light oil to the rocket fuel recipe, and therefore moving the rocket fuel behind the advanced oil, with the rocketry taking the prerequisites of flammables instead. So you can still get a rocket launcher directly from flammables, so you don't have rocket fuel. It's a game. We're just going to leave that there. And it should make a slight hint to produce solid fuel out of light oil and make the recipe a little bit more interesting. One of the obscure details was the only motivation that made advanced oil processing mandatory. It was just lubricant, which does not feel like a high-tech product. I honestly think that because people are going to set up some sort of solid fuel creation from petroleum gas, and especially now we can't mix pipes or mix fluids in pipes, people are still going to make solid fuel from petroleum, and when they get to rocket fuel, they're just going to pipe the light oil in.
Yeah, they'll just pipe the light oil in. They won't bother switching over.
Yeah.
I probably won't.
We can't mix the damn fluids. If I could cut the pipe that was using petroleum to make solid fuel, and then reset the recipes from solid fuel from petroleum and change it over to solid fuel from light oil, and then rehook up a different pipe, different story. But unfortunately,
technically, you don't actually need to convert solid fuel from petroleum gas to light oil, because no matter what, you need to make it from. Can't make it from just light oil. Many have tried, many have failed, more have failed.
What do you mean?
You always end up with an oversupply of petroleum gas because you got to burn it off somehow eventually.
Nah, like my current base, I admit it's only for rockets. It's not doing anything else. But all the petroleum is going to plastic to make low density structures. I don't actually have a need for any more petroleum. And all the light oil goes straight across to making rocket fuel, which actually means my whole build is broken when this update comes. If this update comes.
Oh, I'm sure it'll come.
I'm sure it'll come. What format it comes in is the big question, and it is going to mean that I'm going to have to spend hours and hours redoing my oil, which I'm not particularly happy about, because oil is a pain in the ass to start with. And on top of that, having to get...
Which is the fundamental reason why we're at this point right now.
Well, it means that I have to get a pipe of light oil into a chem plant to make solid fuel. And then I also need to take that exact same pipe and bring it into an assembler that potentially, because the ratios just work, into an assembler right beside it to put more light oil into that assembler to make solid fuel. Just seems ridiculous to me. I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I honestly think that maybe solid fuel needs to be just removed outright, or the recipe to make rocket fuel needs to come from, rather than me having to make 10 bits of solid fuel from 100 bits of light oil with some more light oil sprinkled over the top, maybe I just pump 110 bits worth of light oil straight into an assembler and it spits out a piece of rocket fuel, rather than going from one step to another step to another step.
It's actually something that does... I wouldn't rule that out completely, the idea of getting rid of solid fuel. The only reason it exists is to be an intermediate fuel between coal and rocket fuel.
Well, now between coal and nuclear fuel. And honestly, if you took the fuel value of rocket fuel, halved it, maybe halved the cost as well, you'd be done. And hell, you could even change the rocket recipe over so it needs 10 low density, 10 rocket control units, and 20 rocket fuel to keep the ratios the way they are.
My thinking is that rocket fuel probably needs to be something of its own process, which maybe use the oil refinery again and does something more sophisticated with both light oil and petroleum gas at the same.
maybe. It's got to the point where if we're going to do some of these earlier changes, we need to look at the late game changes. And to me, having a liquid that I'm turning into a solid that I'm then sprinkling a little bit more liquid over and turning into another solid is just a pain in the ass at this point.
It's getting back to that whole thing about lubricant and being busy work.
Yeah. So one of the great things about adding the idea of adding solid fuel to a science pack was it could be created with the excess light oil that player has no use for until unlocking advanced oil processing. They can be burned off to get rid of to get the refinery working. So this was the old idea, but since
this was the version 17.
version 17.
Version 17.
Yeah.
I remember this. I actually was keen on this too because it gave basic oil more of a purpose.
It gave you something to do with those liquids to actually have the refinery working rather than just doing what we've done in the past of putting them in giant tanks. But
admittedly, having played it out now, I don't think it played the
works well on paper, but not in practice.
Yeah, the idea was there, but it didn't pan out as well. Because what I found was that balancing the three, because you had to have all three. Petroleum gas,
all three was easy,
light oil and heavy oil, all making solid fuel to stop it backing up, and managing all those became quite the balancing act.
I used priority splitters and just made sure that heavy oil went onto the belt first, light oil went on second, petroleum went on third. And it meant that, in theory, all the petroleum was available, all the heavy got rid of, all the light hopefully got rid of.
In practice, it never worked like that for me. Because it also depends on the drain of the belt.
Yeah. It's not perfect, but it was something. But yeah.
Usually it was a light oil would back up.
Burn it faster. Put down another power plant. Use that power faster. But yeah. So, since the new change to basic oil processing means there are no excess byproducts anymore, every bit of petroleum gas is valuable, so they're going to throw in another change. They're going to change the chemical science pack to need sulfur instead.
Now it's pure petroleum gas, and it's actually now full circle, 3/4 of the way. Well, maybe 270 degrees. They're almost back to batteries again.
Yeah, pretty much. Although, hang on, how much sulfur is it with iron to make a bit of sulfuric acid? And how much acid do you need for a battery?
50. It makes 50 acid. I don't recall what it is to make a battery.
Yeah.
But it's another iron plate and copper plate. It might be like 20 or something. 25.
Yeah, I think it's one iron and one copper.
Yeah, it's one iron and one copper. I just can't remember the liquid value. I'm throwing a number out there. It's completely random.
Yeah, and the worst thing is I was literally playing with it about 4 hours ago. But yeah, so sulfur opens up the path for sulfuric acid for both batteries and modular armor, and for accumulators and more interesting explosives. So they're looking at using sulfur to set up for the science pack. This is one step more convenient. Similar case occurs with the tank and the cannon shells later, because hopefully you're that much closer to explosives when you want explosives for tanks and the cannon shells. So they're going to replace the solid fuel with the sulfur in the chemical science pack recipe, which...
Yeah, I'm 60% agreeing, maybe 65% agreeing.
Yeah, but I just realised we're so close back to batteries, yeah.
Yeah, that's where my hesitation is. It's so close back to batteries. But at the same time, I agree with it, because they've always, whenever they do these changes, they do it with it's always done with the mindset that you don't force the player to commit to a certain path. And that's particularly apparent with the last sentence, the last paragraph, last two sentences, where you're not committing directly to batteries, which puts you down a fixed path one way, and you're not going the other way with like explosives or something. It's setting you up so you have an option to branch to either one.
Yeah. Whereas if it was batteries, that's it. You've automated batteries, and the sulfuric acid production that you've probably made is dedicated towards those batteries, with maybe not a lot left over or room to expand for other things like blue circuits down the track. So
I must admit, also, I'm going to have to get used to this one, because I have this thing about not busing sulfur.
I still wouldn't be busting sulfur. I would be obviously doing some sort of build that is on a belt that's probably meeting the engine build. and passing down that way to get to chemical science. But yeah, it'd be one or two
it'd be
chem
more
plants.
efficient to belt sulfur.
Yeah, I'm sort of like my sulfuric acid's direct insertion. Explosives obviously isn't, but it's like one sulfur maker to like 8 chem plants doing explosives because they don't need a lot of sulfur. So
it actually works. I was actually going to say that it actually works out to bus it now because you can send it off to explosives. It's convenient.
yeah, but
It's not very convenient to make acid. You still need your own dedicated acid.
Yeah, but explosives, that's the thing. Explosives are where sulfur is made. It's a chemical item, so it's in the right neighborhood anyway, Yeah, anyway, okay, on to robots. So, last week, lots of people complained about changing over the robots, so it was behind chemical science. Our thoughts process was this change was... our thoughts were... the process behind this change was you need to set up pretty much all of the oil refinery recipes anyway, which I tend to agree with.
You generally didn't set up bots without advanced oil.
Well,
that's chemical science.
You need acid, which means
acid
you need
batteries.
sulfur.
So yeah, you've got sulfur.
You need red circuits if you want to make Logibots. If you just want construction bots, you are a little bit easier off. You can skip plastic and red circuits, but you
still need Roboport.
Red circuits for the Roboports. Yeah,
you use 45 red circuits for a Roboport.
So
you need to get the basic Roboport, you still need chemical science. And I think that needs 45 or something. I can't remember. Red circuits. And then you still need red circuits for the modular armor if you want to cram it in that.
Yeah. So they are right. You technically need just about all of the oil refineries set up anyway.
I wouldn't say technically, they are right.
Well, you don't need explosives. You don't need... What other recipes do we have? You needed solid fuel because it was part of the science, but now you won't because you'll have sulfur. You needed just about everything. Not quite everything, but close to.
I suppose you don't need explosive, but you needed to build an entire oil base with cracking and everything.
Yeah. If you're going down the path of advanced oil, and you weren't one of these horrible people that stuck on basic oil and just turned it all into solid fuel and left it that way. Anyway,
it's fine. I keep telling you it's fine. There's nothing wrong with turning petroleum gas into solid fuel. I do it all the time.
Yeah. So they believe that robots, because they actually show up in red-green science, but technically you need everything from chemical science already done anyway to actually unlock them. It should be in that part of the tech tree already, which again I agree with. It was one of those things that I found out that I could do a lot of the red-green research,
but you can't do it with it because there's a big bottleneck behind it. Because you're bottlenecked by.
You're bottlenecked by how fast. Well, how fast you can actually get the builds put down and placed, and that was always the case.
There's a lot of builds.
Yeah, there's a lot of builds, a lot of things to automate, and it's not hard to set up a decent science that's doing, 1 science pack per second. It's really not that hard, and that means you can flow through science very, 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 very quickly. So yeah. One other change is flamethrower ammo will now use crude oil. We mentioned that last week. We actually read ahead. We found it was on Reddit. The devs already agreed to it. It's now going to be crude oil. Mainly because you can't put petroleum gas inside a flamethrower turret. So why would it go in your flamethrower personal weapon? But you can with crude oil. So simple change.
The other question is, will there be multiple flamethrower ammo recipes? For different results?
One for heavy and one for light for that extra damage bonus.
I mean, a damage bonus, but maybe just the amount of output. This one gives you 1 ammo, and then the heavy and the light one gives you more ammo or takes less equivalent fuel.
Oh, look, I'd like to see them play with the damage over time. If you use heavy oil, it has a damage bonus. If you use light oil, it burns for longer.
To do that, they would need multiple fuel types. So you'd have multiple fuel canisters in your inventory. So multiple entities of flamethrower fuel would.
I don't mind the idea anyway. I admit it does lead to a situation where you might have to carry around different types of ammo. But then again, Once you
Having
have...
said that, you do actually carry multiple types of ammo anyway.
Yeah, you do, but like
Yellow
once you
ammo,
get
red ammo, green ammo.
once you get red ammo, you don't tend to carry the yellow ammo anymore. You will for gun turrets, or vice versa.
If you're a masochist
Yeah.
and don't like your turrets.
Well, look, if you got enough of them, or you have not enough red ammo and plenty of yellow ammo, you will put it in the gun turrets. And by the time you get to green ammo, basically everything's running green anyway, so who cares? But rockets are another good example. Like sometimes you want the explosive rockets, sometimes you want standard rockets, cannon ammo. Same story. Sometimes you want stock ammo, sometimes you want explosives. So I don't really have a problem having multiple different types of flamethrower ammo. Like maybe using one of the other oils to have a longer burn time. That's what really... I like that idea.
Maybe there is potential to expand on it.
Yeah, I'd like to put down a wall of fire that burns for like 10 seconds, and then go out and pester a biter with a rocket and have them all walk through it. Anyway, so with all the changes to the oils, they're going to adjust the numbers. Last Friday Facts, they said basic oil processing normally does 40 petroleum. They were going to increase it by 25%, bring it up to 50. They've decided they're going to go for 45, so they're sort of splitting the difference. And advanced oil processing is now going to do 25 heavy instead of the 10 it was doing before. And this was becoming common because a lot of people went back to basic oil processing to make enough lubricant to make Blue Belt.
Yeah, making the lubricant from just advanced oil was always a bit of...
It was a hassle unless you were happy to make the Blue Belt over time, or you'd been smart and put down a tank to stock up on lube over, the last hour's worth of gameplay to make all the Blue Belt you wanted, or you'd started using a lot of plastic to make a lot of things like red circuits to make modules, at which point you didn't really have a lube problem.
Also, if you were not smart with how you manage the heavy oil, you'd run short on lubricant for engines, electric engines.
Oh yeah, if you're not using some sort of smarts, you'd accidentally crack it too quickly. Yes. Yeah. Look, invest in your oil processing. Like, learn how to do one properly with some sort of smarts to have some sort of reserve to make sure lubricants gets made first before all the excess goes from heavy to light and light to petroleum. Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this Friday Facts. Nothing set in stone. They're quite confident about the changes, but it
sounds more polished than last week.
Yeah. They want you to discuss on the forums and on Reddit, and they actually found a bug with the new block water input fluid box feature they added. I think it was in 1859.
It's part of the change, so it's not technically in the game yet.
Okay, I wasn't sure whether it made it in the changelog or not. But they found a bug, and this is one of the reasons we haven't had this oil update yet, because I've been waiting on this. I was waiting on this one and the laser update. I got the laser update, and I'm terribly disappointed, because it seems my lasers have half the DPS they had prior, and they were fully upgraded. So, yeah, we're now going to have to wait for oil, which is going to break everybody's base, pretty much.
Yay, I need to redo my map again.
Yeah. Look, for most bases, if you have advanced oil processing up and running and you're just happy with that, you just need to double or maybe triple your heavy cracking. That should fix it. If you've left room, which, let's be honest, most people haven't. But yeah, that should be the only change you need. Oh, and changing Blue Science to use sulfur rather than solid fuel. So for an existing player, it's two small changes. For new players, it's going to be a completely different oil tech tree. So sorry about that. So yeah, it's going to be I don't know. It's a wait for it to get in game and have a play with it and see how it works. Yeah. All right. I don't think I've got anything else to add. Do you, Mojo?
I'm done.
You're done? You're done? Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you guys for watching as always, and we'll see you guys next week. All right. Bye.